I thought I did it.
So what happens in the brains of people with ADHD? We know from functional imaging that the structure of the brain shows differences from neurotypical people. We also know that the brain chemistry is different too. It's also a very highly inherited disorder. About 80% inheritance, genetics of the condition are quite important.
I remember my grandmother calling me Bastian Contrari, a person that goes the opposite way.
It was 4 or 5 years ago that I was reading about some psychological aspects of our brain, and I realized that, okay, that's talking about my mind. And then I realized that, okay, we have something called ADHD.
When I was a kid, I could always tell I was the odd one out. I would notice other children in my class just automatically knew what to do, what to say, X in X situation and Y in Y situation. Whereas I was always saying X in Y situation, and I felt very awkward, but of course at such a young age I didn't have the words to describe it. I only knew that I was different than everyone else.
Then later on at school I realized that people were treating me differently. But I was very quiet in a way in class, so I kind of managed to hide my discomfort for not understanding what was going on in class.
ADHD is a common neurodevelopmental condition, which basically means that a person's brain works a little bit differently to others. Stereotypically, when someone thinks of a person with ADHD, they may think of hyperactivity, and this can be the case, but it's important to remember that it's not characterised by this one single symptom, and there are lots of other symptoms too. This can include an inability to maintain focus and attention. It may be that a person finds it really difficult to organise their time and their things. It can also mean that they can find it difficult to follow instructions, they may not finish tasks, and they also may say or do things without thinking first.
Sometimes I keep explaining what I have in my mind, which is not really enjoyable for people to hear that. I always have a story before what I want to say. That's kind of my personality. Or the overthinking part, or when I'm distracted with something and a noise that I watch somewhere else.
ADHD has, of course, shaped the way I am, shaped my personality, my life, with struggle and all the happiness and the amazing life that I've been able to live and enjoy. So ADHD does shape your life completely.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's how our brains work. You know, we have to filter through all the extra sensory input that we get compared to neurotypical people. You know, it all comes back to finding a zen, you know, a middle ground, a path through all the chaos. It's not as easy for us. Sometimes sensory issues can ruin my day. We really do need to work on understanding how to mitigate certain sensory issues, understanding what an ideal, let's say, workstation or an ideal state of mind means to us. Then we can work like someone else may be able to. So it takes us a bit more time to do things, but definitely, yeah, ADHD does shape us.
And so in ADHD, people are much better at making remote connections between seemingly unrelated ideas and then generating unconventional new thoughts, which regular people can't do.
I think I'm living in a wonderful dream world where every day I'm thinking about something new, something that I want to create. You feel you are a genius, but you feel lost in a jungle where you're not understood by people. You're not understood even by yourself, because we never had any kind of support or understanding or knowledge about this.
I get several ideas coming to me at once, so my brain first has to filter through which ones are really necessary and versus the ones that are just random and I'll forget in a few seconds. But when I latch onto an idea, it starts to grow, it becomes very vivid. So if I'm writing a story, for example, I can really see each person, each word they say, each colour around them, and then it's up to me to find the right words to express what the idea is.
It definitely affects in good way and bad way. Sometimes it helps me a lot and sometimes it distracts me a lot. I can say that it has pros and cons.
I've noticed that I can't just sit and write. You know, I'd be told, oh, time to do your assignment. It doesn't just come out like that. I really need to be in the correct mental space. I need, let's say, a quiet, tidy room and the idea to just flow out naturally, rather than just, okay, I'm going to write this, and then it will lead to this idea and this idea. It's not very structured, it's very spontaneous. It flows out like water.
I start thinking about the idea a lot. It's like a tree growing in my brain, and I have thousands of different views. I don't try it, my mind tries to overthink it. I get so many branches, and what if this happened? What if that happened? I just try to watch it from different aspects. That's how I work with different ideas that just pop in my mind.
So people with ADHD have a creative superpower. It's hyperfocus. So they can suddenly find something of particular interest and, to exclusion of everything else, focus on that exclusively and can become extremely creative.
Sometimes when I'm really enjoying a process and I want to do something, or I'm really nervous about a deadline, I shift on my hyperfocus so nothing can disrupt me. And I can say that's a power for me as a person with ADHD, because I can put my 100% brain on something, and that's really enjoyable to do that.
I can experience hyperfocus only when there is a subject that interests me. When I do something creative, I love metalwork, and when I do metalwork, I just melt away.
It's really interesting and it's really enlightening when, after all the procrastination and all the distractions, my brain finally locks in and you can't move me, you can't stop me from doing this task. I was working on a little writing piece last night, and forget my 8 o'clock shower, forget hanging out with my sister at 10, forget being in bed by 11, I was just very focused on that writing task. So to achieve those moments, especially with the ADHD brain, especially when I'm so easily distractible, it is really enthralling. It's really exciting.
If I could, I would change the way my brain works. The amount of stress I get sometimes is a lot, and the pressure that I'm in while I can't focus or concentrate on what I want to do is really difficult and draining. So I need to use a lot of energy, or sometimes I need to spend more time than normal for something which is really normal for other people. I would change this part, but the part which helps me with creativity, definitely I would take it, because I enjoy overthinking about the ideas that I have. I'm a theater direction and writer, so when I'm writing, it helps me a lot because I always think about the loops and holes in the stories, and I ask questions about the story of myself so I can get a better story. So I would keep this part.
Well, I would remove the part that I don't like, the part that has become a handicap for me and for all the people like me. The inability.
I think that certain detriments, such as sensory issues, distractibility, being impulsive, even though, yes, they can have negative effects, the ultimate source of discomfort for people with ADHD is societal stigma. You know, we often get told that we're lazy, that we're rude, that we're stupid, and those hurt way worse than any sensory issues ever could. So it's all about getting neurotypical people and anyone without ADHD to understand that our brains just work differently, but we are very capable, we are very creative, and we deserve respect and understanding. So no, I wouldn't change the way my brain works.
People with ADHD are often described as having a superpower, and one of these superpowers is that they have a really creative mind. People with ADHD are often able to think of unusual ideas, they break away from conventional thinking, and they're also able to make unusual connections. And it's these unusual connections that can lead to creative concepts, and also that person being able to think outside the box. Some people's impulsivity can also lead them to take creative risks that perhaps other people would avoid. But in order for a person with ADHD to thrive and succeed, they need to be in an environment that supports and allows them to explore their creativity.
I become one with the divinity of the experience that I'm living.